time and space in the city. In the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise, and death in my pen. Flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. The time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp. And death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero chic drag. As a chiseled beat of soul and sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace is ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake death and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope, smoke, taupe, factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. A space change of funky, junky shifts. And we blow rips of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag, goodbye. And we become the gun of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded, youth decay. And money won't speak, and time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in canned rally time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex. And the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin. City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common mind. And penny witches of cool. And master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the devil and space is never level. As the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak. And time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carla Harriman, and I'm co-hosting delightfully with Aurora Harris tonight. So I'm going to plunge right into our script, and everything will unfold from there. So welcome to Horizons in Poetry 2023, which is made possible by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. The opening and closing video was created by Ascended Visions and features Ron Allen's recording Proto Cool from his spoken word CD, Painted Mind Code. Horizons in Poetry was founded by Ron Allen, Wardell Montgomery, and John Mason in 1982 in the Cass Corridor. This monthly open mic series ran for over 2 decades, hosted alternately by Ron Allen, Sharon Smith Knight, and Trinidad Sanchez.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aurora Harris, and welcome to the poetry series this evening. The Ron Allen Project is a multimedia exhibit reflecting the work and art of poet, playwright, sobriety mentor, and Dharma priest Ron Bodhidharma Allen. During the years he resided in Detroit's Cass Corridor. The exhibit will go up this fall at Detroit's Hannan Center.
Oh no.
I think we just lost Aurora.
Oh no.
Oh dear. Well, I think I'll just continue, and Autumn, you can navigate with Aurora, hopefully, to bring her back soon. So anyway, she was mentioning this exhibit, which will go up this fall at Detroit's Hannan Center in Kayrod Gallery. The grant team who wrote the final submission for the Night Arts Challenge are Carla Harriman, John Jackery, Jim Perkinson, Richard Reeves, and Ruby Woods, who has really been the executive of this entire multifaceted project, and just done incredibly remarkable work in collaboration to make all of the aspects of it happen, including a website and forthcoming website and blog. So as you know, I am Carla Harriman, and the co-hosts warm up the room with a reading and of 15 minutes. And so I decided tonight to start with a few lines by Ron Allen. Mouth. The first official act was the mouth. The taste of cucumber, it drained the rosemary in us. It was time. The eye of rosewood. Eye. The first official act was the eye, a griddle cake of history, juniper, paper, onions of deliberate corruption. It was rancid, foiled sheep, and deep wounds of game. So I wanted to read something from one of Ron's plays, because we became friends over the mutual cause of what I call poets theater, but can be described as linguistically radical theater that emphasizes language, often figured in poetic lines, as a character, and also mingled, in other words, didn't separate what we might call poetic language from discursive language, including philosophical and political language. I'm going to read a little bit from Gardener of Stars and Opera, which was performed a number of times between 2015 and 2018. So I'm going to be reading from the published score. The last performance was a workshop performance at Lightbox in Detroit. Some of you here saw it. It was going to be performed in yet a different mode in New York, but then there was COVID. So I'm going to describe something about Gardener of Stars, which are descriptions that are also suitable to many, if not all, of the performance of the plays by Ron Allen. Gardener, like many of my plays, is segmented into numerous nonlinear, discontinuous scenes. There are radical leaps and jumps. The work is both non-narrative and narrative. The language is thick and touched by surrealism. No one ensemble would assemble the work in the same way. It will always be different, including the music, which you won't be hearing any of tonight to spare you my singing, is improvised. In listening to recent interviews about the performance of Ron's plays, some of the ways I have described Gardner sound like the ways performers describe Ron's plays. I characterize Gardener of Stars as a dysphoric utopia. It is a post-plague fantasia taking place mostly on the outskirts of a city that cycles around the volatile relationship of two female characters, Gardner and the cyborgian M. The score, written starting in 2014, which you will hear a bit of from tonight. Oh my gosh, there's a cop right out in front of my house. I have to pause. There's some theater happening. I have to just make sure they're not coming to my door. So hang on.
Sure thing.
Okay. It's an interesting.
It's a wild night tonight.
It is a little wild. Is it a full moon?
I don't know. Maybe we need to check our planet alignments. My computer just died momentarily, so I'm thinking, wow, Mercury must be in progress or something.
I was happy to see you jump back into the list there of participants, Aurora. Aurora is back with us, but I have Carla spotlighted right now. Is everything okay, Carla?
Everything is okay. They are looking for somebody I'm not helping them find. And we will continue in that vein. I may have to kennel my dog, but if so, that will just be part of the performance. So anyway, I characterize Gardener of Stars as a dysphoric utopia. You're just jumping in, Aurora. So, it will all be discontinuous from here out anyway. It is a post-plague fantasia taking place mostly on the outskirts of a city that cycles around the volatile relationship of two female characters, Gardner and the cyborgian M. The scars, which I started in 2014 and wrote all the way pretty much to publication, which you will hear a bit from tonight, is based on my novel of the same title, published in 2001. Thus, the reference to plague is first a reference to the AIDS plague, but it could be any plague. If I surround an area with a fence or a line or otherwise, the purpose may be to prevent someone from getting in or out, but it may also be part of a game, and the player is supposed, say, to jump over the boundary, or it may show where the property of one person ends and that of another begins, and so on. So if I draw a boundary line, that is not yet to say what I am drawing it for. Ludwig Wittgenstein. Insects. But Bugs. Light. Winds. Chis. Rocket. Refuge. Woods. Glut. Toxin. Mut. Squash. Water. Sun. Water. Sun. Sage. Sun. Sage. Eat. Jack. You. Lation. mush squash sun rooms, redwood cells, blood, rodents, squash, sun, dead, red, light, mud, toxin, blood, dirt, glut, roughage, rocket, olive, log, bog, thigh, mushroom, redwood, birch, cell, rodent, wind, dead, red, light, mud, toxin, blood, dirt, glut, roughage, rocket, olive, log, bog, thigh, mushroom, redwood, birch, cell, rodent, red, dead, red, light. Chorus. Let us begin with a line. Where there is a purpose, there may be a line leading out to a boundary. Let us begin in a game whose boundary might end with players who jump a line. A fence is not a boundary, is yet to be anything, and a drawing game and an area players cross. Scene 1, external to the empty cityscape. Chorus, external to the empty cityscape, an ornate outpost. Anyone can live anywhere or nowhere now, even as an unanticipated event can move one to a new location. After that, there may be no other place in this place. Male captives are a fantasy projected over a low wall. And here, Gardner's universe trips a time wire. The clouds too. I am tired of the clouds. The cell phone, where is it? Gardner would seek any excuse to consult M, even about an object that may never have existed in this world. Moodiness opens to the mass graves of automobiles secreted beyond the prospect of all too human oceans. Maps trace uncodifiable fantasy. Scene 2, in the silo of an open night, which gradually lifts into day. Gardner, who is in the silo of the open night that gradually lifts into day. I am certainly tired of these stars, tired of stars. The clouds too, I am tired of the clouds. Sometimes the ocean is too large, yet if one thinks of animals propagating wildly, the waters divide up nicely, connect and reconnect. I have always been partial to sea level, follow the grain elevator up to the sky, and the clouds part for the sun. The sun blasts away, but the seeds inside keep cool, like seeds inside a grain elevator. We keep cool. I'm cool right now. So I say, we keep cool. Some people say I'm impatient, and others don't notice. Appearing, disappearing, regrouping, the stars about which I personally know almost nothing. Do not wish to research, but plow over as if I were trying to read my own genetic code for no reason other than that I have been programmed, genetically programmed to read it. I will have to talk to M about this. M in a daydream. One day, while lying under an olive tree with my clothes next to me, I thought nothing would ever become of me, as if I were my father talking to me, but lazily, as if I were a father talking to myself invoking instructions produced elsewhere, signed into law, taken for granted, never agonized over, and followed only when at a loss for words. I had taken my clothes off to enjoy the contact with dirt. Leaves scratched my ass, legs, arms, stuck to my dry, powdery, leafy as the arid dirt skin. Streaks and scratches marked my skin, irritating the vulgar whim to be more animal than person. That father's voice again. I broke out in a light sweat between my thigh. This was in a time when I had believed that one ought to be appreciated for no reason, as if this blown out post-plague world had been hurled into a mother's tireless arms, and I, a charming, greedy infant, was a privileged delegate in its reviving story. A story in which pleasure subvocalizes her trivia, making shadow plays within her silly babble. Chorus. A boundary might begin. There may be a game to be more animal than person. A boundary might end. There may be players who jump a line, a fence. Through which Gardner tells a story of pleasure, subvocalizing her trivia. Gardner. The best of the outside awakens him under an olive tree. The arm of the tree reaches down, paternally nudging her awake as if she has been sleeping in a fable. She knocks on my door. When I open it, she throws herself on me. No one has ever thrown herself on me before. It is out of character for me to be thrown onto. I am not deeply rooted, neither am I mercurial like M, who, after throwing herself on me, pulls me outside by the arm, her filthy hands shoved into and forcing my shoulder out. My shoulder, which is positioned in a fluffy, sloping curve close to my trunk, hurts. Stop it. Then I say, cut. Then, no. M, I can't tell her flesh from dirt. I envy her outdoorsy quality. Her claws bite into my shoulder. Downy feathers roost in her claws. M, you little Twinkie. She says this as if she had been born in a war and I on the assembly line. I am the weapon that won't go off as the enemy, a voice telling me to perform, gets closer and closer to blowing her head off. It says, the voice, forget the wild innocence, the innocuous naivetes you preserve inside that ruffle bed of an enclosure you and the rest of the evil empire call a house. Gardner, this is not what I was born for. Surely she speaks my language. I am falling into lopsided jargon. The grip loosens. My mother frantically shrieks on the other side of a glass door. M appears from behind a trellis. I tug on my tails. My tux is too tight. Gardner and M, how do you like my new hairdo? Where did you get it? Touch it. How do you get your head up to turn around like that? It's battery operated, of course. M, you are a mechanical genius. Take it. Your head? I have a garage full of fun stuff in the woods. Mercury, the mechanic. Take it, you pompous twit with an old-fashioned wrench trying to tweak microchips. You don't know anything. That's why you're here, you bird worm. I need someone to give me a lecture. We think we may still be in America and something else. Thank you. Chorus. We think we may still be in America. A middle and left edge have slid, an event of experimental topology, anticipating the behavior of digital technology. This machine arrives in a memory swiftly lost, then just as swiftly found. Time is a gate or a bridge, depending on the rhythm when notes in a passage, depending on the real time when enters or crosses, depending on the symmetry and the hallways, depending on the hormones and dragonflies, the rhythm when crosses in real time, the tools in the belt. And on that note, I will happily turn things over to Aurora. And I'm so glad, Aurora, that you were able to find your way back
Thank
to
you.
the virtual zone.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, that first piece that you're reading with the words, right?
Mhm.
Reminded me of a poem that I wrote a while ago. It's in my book, Solitude of Five Black Moons. I don't know if you guys can see it, but anyway, it's called A Poet's Stroke. And while you were reading, I was thinking about the challenges that I've had in speaking um, since I had COVID last year. And then I thought about this poem when I had a small stroke years ago, A Poet's Stroke. Woman wrapped in right side sarcophagus with small arterial chip causing interruption of gray wave, striation, and bone. Speaks words across thick stung an abstract liquid falls onto lap, and a mobile fin scribbles universal symbols. She is understood. She is saved by a concentric string of words forced from stasis. That's a poet's stroke. The next one I'm going to read is called Urugu. During different times of year and different circles that I hang out with, various folks have different types of rituals. And this one is based on a book by Marimba Ani that deals with this negative energy that caused or came into creation to cause a lot of conflict and upset and dysfunction. It's called Urugu. Recall the beginning. Before Africa became a known Egyptian word, Roman word, where Dogon call Amma and becomes the cosmos, walking in circles to show the position of a distant star, unknown to modern men, stuck in a science of becoming like God. Recall the beginning, space, where space is darkness lit by ethereal light, where the invisible one reaches inside itself to create forward motion of chaos to order, where egg is sacred and seed is sacred water, commanding an existence as the rhythm of sunlight, moonlight, sunlight, shattering sound into particles of music, the scale tone beat of sacred ash across bone and marrow, arranged inside cartography, a map of seas, capitalist routes where Black bodies are cargo, blown like sacred ash, a sandstorm and a dust bowl rising to destroy twilight zones of systemic madness. Listen, listen, listen to the incantation, the mantra and wail of sanity rising from the dust of destruction. Listen, listen to the whole earth purging insanity from its psyche, purging the cynical psychobabble of admitted truths turned into possessions, stuffed like silk into a tweed breast pocket. Listen, listen to the whole earth purging the suffering of souls. Listen, listen to this wind, turning pain into beauty, where we hear now, rising to break the schism, disunity of what was known as community. Sound. When sound becomes jazz, and jazz is the hands of God, reaching and ripping the blindfold of ignorance from the terrain of brain matter, the duality of flesh, so the soul can burst as living water in a drum circle's beat, a concentric voice talking and whispering codes of truth. Remember the beginning, the separated twin, the single birth entity once known as jackal, mating with placenta to bring forth a mate, Urugu, guardian of chaos, projecting the flow of imagination, imagination spinning in a muddy pool, found dead in a dream, brought back to life to bring forth streams, feeding roots of fragrant flowers, filling the sky with the mumbling of reeds, ivory, stretched skin on wood, contained inside the timelessness of creation, where the bodies of women become hummingbirds in flight, the tall walk of flamingos pink from living on toxic water. Listen to this music, the voice of clouds, weeping healing waters, evolving into the new vocabularies of culture, identity, history, beliefs, wisdom, spirit, art, epistemologies of soul found in a pot of yam, okra, rice, found in wrinkled hands along lifelines of scattered bones, communing with the ancestors, the lost, the living, the found, existing in the levitation of notes pounded by ivory, where horns are pipes blowing the sweat of freedom, all red plants shrinking, the cancer in the abandoned, ostracized, the outcast, forsaken and forgotten, bravely facing transition to the heavens, where their breath is exhaled as the flame of elemental, first principles of music, basic unit of harmonics, contrasting and complementary tones, making stones speak, the heat of fusion found in bodies, illustrated as maps, humans projected as sinusoidal straight lines curving north and south, connecting scattered souls seen in a vision from recalling the beginning. Urugu, recall the beginning. Urugu, recall the beginning. Blown like sacred ash, blown like sacred ash. Blow us into the Amen, the source, the Atongo, the Asili of Ani, her logos of culture, the seed of culture. Take us into the Utamaroho, the Utamarazo, what makes this music and energy a source of a culture once erased, stolen, hidden, brought back to the living. Recall the beginning. Yurugu, Yurugu, I'm calling you. Yurugu, recall the beginning. Blown like sacred ash. Blown like sacred ash. That was Yurugu. And let's see, what else do I have here? I would like to read a couple of verses that I wrote a couple of years ago in memory of Ron Allen. This is called Head. Stage 1, Earth into Water. "11 years later, while talking to Clinton, I break down sobbing from unprocessed grief. I hear you, Ron. I see you, Ron, sitting in a sterile, piss-smelling Los Angeles hospital hallway while being Bodhisattva, the one who seeks to attain liberation for the welfare of all beings, talking to me in heavy, unspoken words about being afraid, between the afternoon chatter of awakening, the process towards your state of mind where suffering stops. Stage 2, water into fire. All that, Ron, crackling through a cell phone's transmission of promises to keep writing every Saturday, in, out, between potassium numbers and dialyzed breath, separating you as substance from a poison solution by that motherfucking machine interfering with the next set of lines for a poem and play screaming in your kidneys while you wait for your turn with whispers underlying 5 precepts between solemn breaths. One, refrain from harming or taking the life of any being. 2, refrain from taking or misusing anything that does not belong to you or has not been clearly offered. 3, refrain from harmful expressions of sexuality. 4, refrain from harmful expressions of speech. 5, refrain from the use of intoxicants and substances which cloud the mind. Stage 3, fire into air. Your pen is a mouth-sucking, beer-stained, crackling, smoke-filled breath through temple bar windows. Stage 4, air into consciousness. Your poems are dentures, chomping on crispy, hard-fried bubbles of Detroit's Chinatown Chunks egg roll wrappers. Stage 5, consciousness into luminance. Your cool pen, alone, talking toeless wontons floating on brilliant pages of scattered script, thrown into the air by a wanton, raging rebel barricaded in a room, fighting post-traumatic wars, dancing on laughing bookcase of Third Street flashbacks when the voices told you to kill everyone. Stage 6, luminance into radiance. Your pen sipping on Saturday morning sunlight, writing abstract lines from a deep dish slice of Vietnam jungles. Okay, so those were the poems from a group of poems of Head, getting into Ron's head and my head. How are we doing on time?
I think it's time to move to the next segment.
Okay,
That was incredible. That was the ritual that we needed. That Yurugu, how is that spelled?
Yurugu.
Hmm.
Thank you. That
No,
was
you're welcome.
really, really terrific ending to this part of the evening. So in a minute, we're going to go to our featured reader, Dennis Teichman, but I wanted to mention that anybody who might like to read later on, read something later on, please sign up for the open mic reading in the chat, and there will be a couple of us who will make sure that we notice that you've done that. And over to you, Aurora.
Okay. Last year in 2022, we lifted up Broadside Lotus Press by presenting 3 recipients of the prestigious Naomi Long Magic Poetry Award: Dr. Sandra Staton Taiwo, Jaquise Armstrong, and Malika Favorite. We also featured 2 Horizons in Poetry veterans, Samaj Brown and Detroit Ether Blue. In 2023, we are featuring writers who were published in Hipology, Horizons in Poetry, the 1990 anthology of poets edited by Ron Allen and Stella Cruz, published by Broadside Press.
So Dennis Teichman is our reader. Tonight, our featured reader. He's a lifelong Detroit area resident and proud IUOE 324 member, fellow union person. He is a co-publisher with Detroit River Press, a former WDET radio host of Dimension, a writing and music program. Dennis is a co-publisher with Past Tense Press. He has published 2 poetry books, Edge to Edge and V8. He is a co-facilitator with Writer's Block, a writing workshop at Macomb Correctional Facility. His work appears in many anthologies, including Hipology, Horizons in Poetry, Labor Pains, Poetry from Southwest Michigan Workers, Dispatch Detroit, XCP, Cross Cultural Poetics, Partial Zine, Uncontained Writers and Photographers in the Garden and the Margin, Absent but Present Voices from the Writer's Block. So that's quite a mouthful of anthologies, and I now would love a mouthful of words from Dennis Teichman, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to read. So over to you, Dennis.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to follow both of your readings, which were quite wonderful. I'm going to start with a poem that I wrote as a prompt from one of the writer's block writers, Ken Tello, AKA Bear. And it's called, the prompt was Driving Around. And I sort of did an epigraph, came to my mind is, where can we go? We who must wander the wastelands in search of our better selves. It's actually from Mad Max, the Fury Road. I think it was the first History Man or something. Okay, so this is Driving Around. Drive through the city, one eye seeing what the windshield says is there. Constant work in progress, reflection of this day into tomorrow. Streets are stanzas for our songs. The other eye sees what used to be, mirages of other drives through that landscape now memory. What did change or disappear? An image undone, set aside for imagination. Ed Roberson's What You Cannot See, Do Not Record as None. It's the long story, kept busy rewriting itself. What is kept depends on voiceover from the second glance. Retell what's remembered, the layers of ourselves within stores and porches. City shown on the hands of so many that worked wood and brick and iron of construction, a steel vision that holds as much hope as reality might not. We work the understood difference. Now, this one is Remand. It's dedicated it to Svetlana Alexievich, the Belarusian writer. And the epigraph from her is, the little people will tell their story, history's grains of sand. Remand. Stress seen on faces, she writes like pictures. Stress it's the presentation of body's call of mnemonic refrain. Portray history into presentable form. What's said with what's seen. Voices inside one another. Her embedded words, a statement fixed against any posturing restatement. Forensic for public thought. If word is person, word then a conversation with people brought back that would have remained lost ones. Needed clarity for those not presently regarded as population. Taken from invisible to noted, images from the silence between letters. She says, you use force, I use words. Isn't it just so? Then isn't justice so? To speak it considered remedial. And now, a two-liner. What's in Nevada conservatism? Who wouldn't want a nuclear pet-powered rock to watch over you? We don't need neighbors, so why don't you just be our backyard? All right, so, and I wrote these when I've been going to Belle Isle a lot. It's kind of rehabbing my leg that I broke, and these poems all came from walking around the island and seeing how they're trying to reimagine the island and how they're not doing a good job with some of it, and some of it they are. So so this one is called the Belle Isle Continua. There's like 7 short poems with an epigraph. Learn how to live so wilderness never becomes mythology, from C.A. Conrad. So the first one is Herticulture. Trees no value now, like it was said, they are so old-fashioned. So my sight and sigh to think forest death. could be told in future songs of erasure. With the latest tech wink nod like this is how the human side of the nation's ledger says humane. For comparison to land scraped clean, merely a real rebuild. We're just vying for space as any invasive species might. When we speak an apposite noise of ignoring, a concern adrift like a river's meander. And this one is called The Garden of Earthly Slights. All over the news, a mind set in the garden. Place to look florid. From mindset means captivating. Explosion, a TV day of intensity. Intentional clown genius explanation. A derivative word, winding fashionable. Some look at who's talking in the dirt as seen from where your eyes aren't looking. This one is morning water ellipsis. It's I was sitting by the water looking out at the lake, and I was just all my thoughts just never seem to complete themselves. So this is called morning water ellipsis. They're all ellipsis. Think you're heading out to. See, the direction means. That motion just caught me by its intention to be. Going so very close to. This running stream discourse is a way to ditch any talk about. Any answer to say possible is. Just another round of desire as any interest found somewhere in. Then saying it's the mind playing. To see the strange lust for loss, but it was here just a minute. And this one is as if an evening sky could cover what you sing. Give away orange glow is a rule of thumb. Essential mirror advancement match. The words we say we're on track to stark landscape craft industry. Some bring it home latest lyrics then. It's a dark and dirty world. Oh yes, that's what it is. How to negotiate? Well, that's your dang biz, isn't it? This one is a show of hands. No telling what's with the sky that makes it look like it's descending Hindenburg faster with each day. Asphalt line weight in the multicolor thickness. Density roll out chemical trails, heavy enough for these hawks to walk on it. A cautionary tale just to see them at all as they work at defying city odds. Smart enough to not eat the poison rats, squirrels, sickened by our sovereignty, but still caught in our own snare of good intentions, meant to backfire at the first sign of having a balanced life. Sending us back to any parking lot for the missing instructions needed for clarification, now buried someplace with leftover scientific warnings or stacked away in the lawn dwarf's petting zoo. Words to explain an atmosphere that would fall away like peeled paint. Excuse me. And this one's called A Brief Direction Dream Pantoum. See in this tree line of dead oaks a likeness with the trouble in depictions. Treat non-natural disasters like artists' conceptions. Walk around, view warnings as some old kiosk news. With the trouble in depictions, trying times are ready to outlast each brief summary. Walk around, view warnings as some old kiosk news, like a sidelong glance at a torn picture. Trying times are ready to outlast each brief summary when talk is the only commodity traded. like a sidelong glance at a tore picture, where memory is an extinction event. When talk is the only commodity traded, and the barren land an accepted enthusiasm, where memory is an extinction event, a fanatic wave to the other image in a mirror. And the barren land an accepted enthusiasm, writing the sight as an echo, a fanatic wave to the other image in a mirror, along the way to change the angle of belief. And this one, it's got hawks in it too, but this is called called Neo Confessional. So 7 hawks riding the air currents overhead like Goodyear blimps. I ride my own drift along the ground's pattern on the street's overlay. Just one guy in a beater motoring away towards the shimmering road mirage ahead. I'm considering a reliable idea of structure. The one so sky blue the land is absorbed in its color, and it can refloat your boast about the time searching to be in it, and say it's the thought that counts, even while saying it is moving through internal dialogues backwards to the place where the search started. Contrast 7 hawks over me as I move along the land's contours, a sense of desire, my only distance, looking to be someplace else, as if perfectly normal for all to imagine a place as contrary as myself. This one is Curved Liner. This is to Steve Panton, the artist, and who did collages that been put together from metal that he found along the railroad tracks and old factories. Great stuff. I just loved him. So Curved Liner, number 1, wire draw. Inquiry is the object. Could be what you want to see. Wouldn't be only metals inside metal. Leftover commerce from shops aging in their emptiness. And still, there are these shapes: lever, screw, cylinder, sphere to probe, proscribe how much mystery is utility. A call for names that come with built-in questions. What structured their day? Was that a history when someone made them? Now a bypass detritus in a shadow receded talk, fuel the curve of imagination. 2, steel plate. Someone had a hand in this. Could be a wheel or a tank tread. Anything made from elegant violence of art cutter heat. Contained to craft what's wanted. There is enough unknown in it to bring any sequence of expressions. Converse with what it was after worn away matte finish. Child's toy, gun sight level, planetary gear train. A new chance of witness, scenery of reflection, truing up inchoate thought. 3, sprocket. Haven't seen that one in a while. Haven't seen that one ever. Nothing to it, although it's brass. Language of materials, fixtures, drawing boards. Get backstory assembly. Forms made in buildings where stale air says nothing will ever be the same. Lost descriptions, rummaged cautionary tales, scattered parts tell of terminus. This one is finite. This is about, I read an essay on water, and the essayist mentioned that the world contains 340 million cubic miles of water. So that's that's a lot. Finite again, and in multiples, coming to a location nearby, as in unconditional, as in taken away, as in denied. 340 million cubic miles of water flowing away, then gun-loaded talk. Before you get what you want, you get what someone else needs. This picture of languishing on roadsides, not optional. Be led to nothing is still led. Oceans, river, millennial movement, power of least resistance, history of changing shape, and on land in wind-shot dust, the weapon has your back for its historical site. Preferred implements for the latest version of necessary purpose. Extending a hand to push the other away, forced to make change dead simple, as in close. To the distance between dry ground and food is where the body thins out to breaking point. Thins out to match empty soil. Thoughts of escape, mired and nowhere to go. This is the way bodies drop, the mirage on an empty destination. Sort of goes with the drought in countries lately. Let's see, am I doing all right? I got enough time? Is that it?
No, you've got,
Keep going,
yeah, you
Keep
got about,
more,
Keep going?
if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you
Okay.
have about at least 10 minutes more.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So this was in the threefold fall issue of 2021 that Chris Tisch puts together. It was great. It's a remake of a poem that I wrote a long time ago, and I just loved it so much that I decided to redo it all together. It's called Miles Davis Gets a Tour of the Plant. I was thinking a lot about like what Mark Nowak was writing out, the difference between like, writers who write about the mode of production or the resistance against the mode of reproduction, and then the social reproduction, whereas you kind of like find yourself like outside the job and still trying to like, find ways to categorize yourself, not only as the job, but outside of it. Okay, number one. Between the parts crib and the punch press, a trumpet solo echoes off my memory, loops around that 1:30 a.m. haze called the shop lights, and lands as glowing St. Elmo's fire on every spare part that looks like a musical instrument. Short burst of some "I fall in love too easily" styled miles, taking the room away from its purpose for a while. Let me drift away, enjoying the pleasures such moments bring as a respite from the usual overload of cussed out machinery and its violent return language. A thought beyond adventurous while turning threads into steel plate. Let the music turn through me. Figure out a couple bars of something bluesy in the way I'll work as night wears me thin. Turnpipe, snap fingers, turnpipe, snap fingers. Slide to the right. Unbolt that thing. Shadooby-doo, you see? Probably just tell the guys over by the oil drums that I'm horn sectioned out. Go on without me and all that jazz. 2. In the machine shop, there's a length of 3/8 copper pipe that's bent and flattened, and if blown through, or more correctly hummed through, I can approximate the trumpet sound. And depending on the number of cigarettes smoked, complete a half-remembered tune with volume, notes, phrasing. And despite the shop rats thinking I might be a bit mental, that pipe hasn't been tossed in the scrap bin yet. So I pick it up on my breaks, try to achieve personal bests, like when I took a stab at So What? My notes deep down smoky, riff off the hushed crowd sitting at candlelit tables. Feel the mood. Notice her slender fingers tapping with the rhythm, leaning over a candle to light a galwas, then one for me, her eyes on me as she slowly rises. And jolted back to the other dream called my life, after about 4 bars when some leather lung in the band near the bandsaw shouts out, "Motherfucker, you're flat." 3, not being a musician, but listening to musicians, I recognize A minor as the natural pitch to the steam line, but not hearing an A minor is still listening for sounds I'll gladly tap my foot to. Here's something tin that looks contained with enough music waiting to join the ensemble of this variety show called Friday Night. Maybe find a C sharp coming through the darkness, low or loud, while tapping notes with a wrench to some ballad stanza playing on the radio by the coffee pot, a pair of volumes, listening, more like scanning for planet vibrations, music of the spheres in an E major, while wondering if I really know a note's definition. Could it be a personal history spiraled into a moment? Or like walking into a room past an overheard conversation and spending hours thinking about what was said. Time capsule music, tough decision. But as a reference, somebody tossed a greasy bearing onto the newspaper on the workbench, just missing the photo in the corner blurb, Miles holding his trumpet. Tough stare, note this. 4, it's about time to notice the tempo in engines, bolts, make continuous sounds by octaves. Some talk with machine room hums, orchestral phases I zoom into a rhythmic story, like hearing Miles and Hank work in Bye Bye Blackbird. Oh, I'm missing yeah, hold on. Let me start that one again. In the machine shop, nope, wrong. Sorry. Let me do that again. Okay. It's about time to notice the tempo in engines, bolts, make continuous sounds by octaves. Some talk with machine room hums, orchestral phases I assume into rhythmic story, like hearing Miles and Hank working Bye Bye Blackbird, making that section of time into literature. It's tempo airy, responsible to its topic, just as these pipes around me are flanged to today's commerce. Their music of appliance, a backbeat crescendo, tones ready to chant with, tools fit to stretch the imagination. No limit to what we use, what we make useful. Machinery, music, me. We are all for the time being. All right, and I'll read it. Yeah. All right. This is from the partial zine piece that I did. It's called Don't Panic. What starts out as a professional portrayal, a 30-second radio spot, a sighting into the arranged or into as such, how one aligns thinking damaged with the reminding story of administration. A make no mistake application. See Part A. Part A. A duet with a little spirit of perchance. In its business going about reminding that a day's worth starts with airless thinking, moves to complete misnomers, ends with a hard night of secret words in sweaty handshakes, instructions tossed out. See Part B. Part B. The crowds are staring up into that other night, a sky ready to close shop. What's left behind in dressing rooms is ready to be recorded as more dust. A blur in the distance where the wind blows right to left on your dial. 1 or 2 last-minute issues to complete reportage, working the lines. Affect demonstration effectively. How many will be called away? Call them out individually in a voiceover. Calling out by voice pattern recognition. Call out as part of the past. See Part C. Last week's neighbors know it's writ large by those timing crowd finding trajectory refinements. Moving dictation against segments backlit sound, saying this is the new esoteric, working directions under many skies. See Part D. Part D. When the world around you begins to collapse, don't panic. Just tap out your location on the last wall from a memory of a room you intended to think about and note the hour until rescue. See Part E. Part E. This thought left intentionally blank. And I think I'll end it with my own little science fiction story that I always get a kick out of. So it's called He and She. They copped the car for its size, a big four-door down grill first in a drainage ditch. She had friends with a scavenge truck who helped them roll it into a place near the end of the rail yard that he considered magical. Nothing in use for over a mile in any directions. Streets weeded over, but everything intact. Forgotten about. Exactly the spot where another loner got wasted by blue ice a year ago. Shit like concrete, he told her. Strangers pissing on strangers. She was nearly impressed by the image and thought it was a fairly good region to set themselves up. The soup boys had everything else anyway, and she felt like deterioration was her mood to run on. They got the car up on blocks and traded the tires to some backlot Sharpie for a battery so the radio would work. Whoever had the car before them had pinstripe micromotor schematics on the quarter panels, and they invented all manner of religions to go with the design. A way to ward off the thickness of bad air or the variety of infections they were prone to getting. Payback, she said, for all of the hours they hunted through the fresh burns of old tabernacles or job shops, breathing in the oily vapors of charred wood and bakelite. They had a distinct vision of their life. Code name, body bags. On the days they weren't too sick to move, they traded what they found for food. Bottles of mercury, dental molds, a complete set of water-soaked encyclopedias from the 80s. Or they hung close to each other, laughing as they sprinkled the car with dirt for that essentially abandoned look. At night, they did their bounce on the shag carpeting between the seats in between static-filled songs. She didn't like the looks of that recurring rash on his face, so she concentrated more on his body, which was a little better, playfully calling him her up-to-the-neck romancer. He dug her UN silence mode about his features and told her he would always dream of her as the ultimate platinum blonde in a zinced-up car. Warmth of lowercase derivative bliss. Through the side windows, the only stars were the strobe sequencing on the remaining factory towers in the distance. They would lay arm in arm recounting the stories about the time of oil spills, derailed chemical trains, how Japan became the first country without foliage. If the past helped make the future, they decided they were definitely past the future now. Nothing left but promises not to become too invisible to each other. Even the infrareds of the flyboys weren't a consideration. The screens would only show them as a patch of green heat in the dead-end darkness, a false read from the emptiness. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a real wonderful experience.
That was wonderful. It was great to hear you.
Thank you. It was terrific to be part of this.
It was terrific. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you.
So I was just going to add one, I'm adding one person to the public chat so we keep track of it. So what I'm seeing up there, Aurora, tell me, is for our next, for the open mic, we've got Jim Perkinson and then Steve Benson and then Barrett Watton.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
had a question in the chat from Steve Curtin about, it was for Dennis, about the name of the artist or sculptor that he mentioned.
Oh, Steve Panton. He ran a gallery in Hamtramck for a few years, and he was an artist himself, and he's involved with the online zine Essayed, which,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but he went around, well, he did the same thing I used to do. You just go around the neighborhood and along the railroad tracks, especially in Hamtramck, and just he'd find these amazing shapes that would like fall off the cars, the scrap cars and stuff. And he would put them together into these really wonderful like collages on the floor or on the wall. They were just really beautiful. So
And Steve wanted to know what was the name of the scrap metal sculpture.
That's it. Steve
Well-
Hannan, right?
that's the name of the guy. Yeah, the sculptures, they really didn't have names particularly. He
Yeah.
just set them.
The artist, I guess you have to look up the artist.
Yeah, I have to look up the artist.
Okay, well,
Kayrod just put a link to Steve Panton's site, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
There's a link in the chat now.
Super. Should we hear a bit more writing poetry?
Yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
love to hear what you want to read tonight.
Mhm.
All right, just time-wise, what are we talking about here? Like just 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
We have till 9 o'clock. There's 3 people who want to read. Maybe there'll be another person or two and time for a little conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dennis, it's great to hear you, and been a while since I've been in the same space with you. So great.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So this is just an older piece I dug up called Rhetorically Speaking. The bear growls, the crow calls. The mountain panther speaks eye shaft of amber shriek. The cobra coils in mantra of illumination. I hear none of these. I know not the old sounds. I know urge of animal tongue only in the bottom of my feet, like a summons to walk barefoot or backwards. The street glistens, heat shards of shrill burn, quartz flakes of mountain cut, like a slow erosion of human umbilical, frozen in flints of original asphalt. The city is night without an owl, is midnight of the soul, like a blue streak of cafe mumble. I am ear of dead buffalo, muted in the horn of 1,000 lost opportunities, running cold talk like aboriginal dream rivers beneath the concrete gutter. But this could be guttural incubation of flow, ground sound of ancestral treaty talk, breaking ear with the hymn of imagination. This could be an absentee note of shaman flute, flying like osprey over the lithic ocean. It could be invisible ascent of primordial jam time, pouring like vibration from the vagina of idea. It could be a cobalt orchestra of pit vipers and gangbangers sharing heat around a live coal, just waiting for you to blow on it. It could be the word of many upmanship, looking for a lip to dance and wondering if yours is available. It could be an open gullet letting you out the door. It could be you if you haven't spoken yourself yet. It could be 57 colors of audition shimmering like a cloud of flamenco in the dawn of Tanganyika. It could be a leap of leopard trying to change his spots into culture. Or it could just be settler colonial me trying to learn that deafness is only the special effect of white lies and advertising and not the state of human nature.
Great.
Thank you.
give some snaps.
Is that enough or you want one more? I say, is that enough or you want one more?
Can do another.
All right. I'll do one in honor of my wife, which I usually do. I have a discipline of doing poems for her on her birthday, on Christmas, on Valentine's Day, and other times. So this was from her birthday a couple of years ago. It's called, when she was 66, called 66 Licks and Counting. For better or worse, they say, So now I sit in my chair in vertigo limbo, wondering if I can begin to etch even an ant's hind leg's worth of the thankfulness I carry for your advent in my checkered life. Like some long-awaited, suddenly appearing springtime, upending the beginning of fall and turning my seasons backwards, so life becomes more a trek towards youth than age. The little girl in you, still so quick to pop up in fit of laugh or smirk or gaze in the mirror with pleasure, look full of wonder, and tickle at the spectacle of your latest yarn ball necklace invention, lacing your breast in syncopated dance with the earrings that bounce the beat of your delight, while wisdom and vision give nice sharp precision to the mission, a pastor's girl unfurling
Donald,
vocation from evangelical
kill 3
conversion to,
carrots.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. From evangelical conversion to wild in love, passion, looking for disciples without remission, ready to commission even university presidents with conviction and lessons on world salvation, like the moon goddess Mayari and the dawn queen Dian Masalanta become flesh and multiple in the counsel and cavorting of my baby and lover, a woman, a child, a crone, a riled diva, a tampo tempered filly, filling every plate with rice and chilies, spice and sugar and snoring. Temple Grandin, pretending dream weaver and cleaver to my body when the midnight showers of far side spirits devour logic with whimsy and visitation, and then popping open morning like a champagne cork with whatever globe intricate question of indigenous myth meets discourse analysis hype that happens to leap like an underworld dwarf from her right temple synapse to her left brain trained tongue, with an edge like a spear and a flavor like a melon. This woman that even her renowned graduate student companions feared like an Amazon is my wife and mate, my plate sharing, fate sharing, K-drama couch date fiending siren, whose single syllable chuckled, babe, is all the trumpet I need to announce the end of the age, the beginning of heaven, the coming of a cinnamon and sage, adobo tocino, and chicharron rage for a messianic banquet true to the appetite and hollow palate of a sardine quaffing mage of spouse like you, who will upbraid even Abe and Jesus and God if they don't remember to serve the fish sauce. Happy birthday from your still Paki Ramdam challenged, let the water run too long, adore.
That was pretty good, Jim. I'm sorry that my mic popped on and I was telling Donald to peel some carrots, but then it kind of fit into your poem with the food.
Well, just a little syncopation, that's fine.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you. Our next reader is Stephen Benson.
Yay. Hey, there he is.
Muting myself. Hi, thank you. I'm grateful to be welcome at this ritual, and which is full of extraordinary amazements. And I appreciate the chance to participate. And I'm going to read a couple pages out of something that on the page it looks like that, more or less. It's the middle of a longer piece of writing called What? And I'll just start and see if I can read it well. Remnants of rice ears shortened, qualified by design, humdrum nasal squibs sounded, overly hostile, wiggle, promises perturbation, modernized, endless, inside, out, promotional. Material makes peculiar demands on my intentions, turning them into rabbits and scarves for sale. Anything can be just an idea for sale, and I forget who or what I most want to write. I will have to do it tomorrow, but time is short and I am tall. The river is wide and the car does not float. I'm not funny and nothing makes sense. The children think this is normal. Tubercular rugs, typhoid alley, romantic hands keep clutching frosty banister, balance truncating a shuffle. Pedigree outside the norm slices humid pockets of air, flies doze in. Your mouth, a vast honeycomb, the Alsatian sourdough, sipping at milk in the pan, the previous tenants left behind under the sink, where we found sweet light sweeps slyly inside simple wilted slips of striped sheet. 4, or is it 5 lines? You guess what you told me. The past has already evaporated. Its shelter is imaginary, and so are you, dear reader. Oleander, seasons, wig, shift, smear, cold pie, tide, over or less, a sphere, than impermanent, stone, trees, shelter, a sense of share, snare, smell, robber baron in the shell tops, crust encircled with dew, moldy apple, a farmish sign tan in ringlets afterglow, a Phoenician scout, olive in the eye, complexion furnished with an amber tub across the glue tips, armpits covered with muse. Rereading 1980 journal writing and a magazine piece. I was so much going on in that time, whirling dry wind, looking for a wet body to inhabit, frozen, but parched and burning, loving and encouraging too, responding in the effort to incite authenticity. I can only wonder at the tenuous yet inevitable connections between then and now. Thank you.
So much texture. Thanks so much. And then Barrett Watton is going to read
Nice.
a piece.
I've been unmuted.
Welcome.
I've been unmuted. That's the first thing, right? I was very moved by the clips of the film at the beginning and Ron's presence, and I knew Ron often long distance, particularly when he was doing dialysis down in Detroit. He would call because he had some time, and mostly he was looking for Carla, but she wasn't around. So he and I would get into these fairly lengthy conversations, actually, which were without question absolutely, I don't know, they had a very high social presence, even though, he wasn't just taking up my time. They were very specific and connected. So I wanted to read a work that I think follows Ron in the genre of what I'm going to call dark indictment, because I think that's something Ron does as well as anybody. And the poem is an overwriting of an earlier work that channels surrealism, particularly a translation of a surrealist poet named, it was actually the Dada poet, but it was in a little bit later phase of his career, Tristan Tzara. And it uses the metaphor, that version of the poem uses the metaphor of a radio. Radio is like a great surrealist idea of this kind of direct transmission from one place to the next. And at some point in the most recent 5 years, let's say, I decided I was going to overwrite that poem based on the kind of experience we were having of the garbled noise out there that counts as communication. And so I did that. I rewrote every stanza in this poem with another stanza using vocabulary from the present. So it's now no longer radio, it's media literacy. So it's about how to be literate in the media world. And this is my dark indictment of that. So what you'll hear is a stanza of the overwrite and then the original, and then the overwrite and the original. And you can kind of see how the vocabulary and even the possibility of communication changes. The first poem was written in 1980, and then 40 years later comes the overwrite. So media literacy. Desire confronts a tyrant, an allegory of bad trade, balloon-like at the apex of gloire. Conviction fills the body. The presence of dead souls, flute-like at the base of the ear. A message goes out to the fandom, lacking clothes, a curtain dividing gold from blank precarity, emitting mendacious impulses vomited from greed. A particle enters the soundings, suddenly open, a door, separating bright from careless patterning, forcing a language, memory designs from sleep. The mind is an appendix with no reason to persist. The body is more primitive, attached to the ground. A foreign register of darkness is put down, never to admit. A frame lights up horizons to lead forward, larger than life. Ages backed up hence enhance surplus of outward show. Animals eat words, exercise this great and glassy news. An originary myth, a dead sparrow, as from any fiction, a missile. The end of the road, a walking flower, as in any direction, another. Interests diverge, and hypotactic misalliance welcoming home, rapid strike force of fuzzy logic, summoning winners all. Peripheries meet, a syntactic forecast through hostile centuries, a slow drawing out of detail, reflecting grays. In defeat, the eye lapses, is obscured by nuclear codes. To confirm, the ear catches, is measured until it disappears. Breaking ranks, everyone forgets, appellate decision overturned. Breaking code, no one recalls, appeal to the surface of fact. The stench is extensive. After lamps extinguished, naked memes only facts can erase. The flames are sponges in smoke-blackened hour, blighted fruits, words can't grasp. Nor any question mark mitigates agony. Our severe decline of media literacy, a billion witnesses outside the door. Among stations immeasurable across fields, a flashing sign fixes only certainty, two eyes blinking through a door. A severed hand creeps up regardless, with language to unbind shit as substitute for sin. The missing head must be seen whole, where one word leads, clouds to accident of end. Ever the expensive spirit, overriding wastes of shame. The machine never tires. Edges of stations start to come in. Three roads converge at first sign of damage, an inevitable decline. The head of a king's son multiplies at crossroads, an immutable exchange. We are everywhere dispersed, attuned to caesura that opens and disgorges hospital discharge report. You are the world, wings of oblivion and endless drilling, a shadow of things to come, the wind on their heels. Money pursues no commodity, but itself, surplus index of excess, a black hole consumes. In pursuit of a ship in harbor, the voices of towns without body, stars without voice in space, a ringtone for life, a night for the blind, messaging on their devices, hope, fingers to the touch, passing through his fingers, the short black branches of the eye. And that poem is now dedicated to Ron Allen.
Yeah, it's nice. I think my sound is still on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Aurora, we now have the privilege of inviting people to make some comments or pose some questions.
Yes, yes. We have how many people? 18, 16
Yep.
in our audience. So post your questions to the poet.
Well, this is Ruby. I would like to mention that Sherry Flowers Anderson, who is a Naomi Long Magic poet award winner this year, was it? Or was it last year? Sherry, she's here. She's in the house, and I'd like to welcome Leslie Reese tonight to the set. So just want to mention their presence.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. So where should we go? There was so much going on in this reading. One's going to have to kind of go fishing and pull something, out of the pond that's very busy with stuff. Here's a question, Dennis. Did I understand from John? Dennis, did I understand you to say you had rewritten the Miles Davis piece? If so, what was the impetus for the rewrite?
Oh, it was too long for starters. And it was too lengthy. I wanted to shorten it up and make it more concise. It was much longer, and I just felt I had too many words in it that didn't really go anywhere. So narrowing it down like I did made it feel a lot better. I like the piece a lot. I like it in its present form much better than I did in the other one. I guess that's a vote for rewrites.
I have a very, I don't know, maybe just typical question, Dennis, which is, are you thinking of making a new collection of work?
Oh yeah,
it's time. It's time for another book, don't you think?
Yeah, right. I'm bidecadal.
You're bidecadal.
So that's how that works. Yeah, I am thinking about getting some stuff done. I might do a chapbook out in Ann Arbor with Jim Horton, if I can con him in doing some engravings for me. So that'll be kind of nice. But yeah, I think about it.
Yeah. There's a few people here that love to read some of that stuff in book form.
Well, I'll get at it, honest. I'll give it the best shot I can. I gotta find a publisher.
So Sonia says, Dennis, always enjoy your work. One of my favorite lines of tonight is cussed out machinery.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I didn't know Sonia was in the house. Sonia.
Sonia. Yeah. No, cussed out machinery it is. Yeah.
One of the lines that caught me was up to the necromancer.
I love to play with words like that. You can break words apart and just form all these amazing little, sidebars of language. I get a kick out of doing I did a lot of that when I wrote VA. There was a ton of those sort of words that were other words became a phrase or a sentence even. So I had one where I think it was a play on Tinkers to Evans to Chance, the old double play thing from the old baseball. So it kind of, I like work. Let's play with language. It's what it's there for.
Yeah, I see Leslie's acknowledging that. She says, he always be playing with words.
Leslie. From one who knows how to play with words. That's it.
Yes.
I have a question for you. What is your writing process like these days? Since things changed over the past couple of years with pandemic.
Yeah, it did. Well, that's one of the reasons why, like, I did the Belle Isle Continua. It's just, I've been going to Belle Isle a lot. And it's just really pleasant to sit there and kind of like, take everything around me. And, I'd make a lot of notes, or I'll write the whole poem out on the island. But as far as the process, I don't have a process, I just write. When it comes up, I write it, and then I go wash the car or something. It's the practice of everyday life, I guess.
And help yourself.
Yeah. Help yourself.
Perkinson has a question in the chat. How do you birth a poem? What incubates it?
Is that to everybody, or to me, or to Carla, or to me?
Everybody.
Everybody. To everybody.
Jim, you're muted.
It either comes to me complete. I'm muted?
No, Jim is muted and he was.
Yeah,
Oh,
the host didn't want to hear what I had to say, so I was X'd out technologically. No, to you, but in the hearing of everybody. But yeah, it was more addressed to you. What provokes a poem?
Well, right now I'm sort of big on exploring how we're dealing with climate change and starting to put it into so it's kind of like, well, the Belle Isle Continua sequence that I've started is pretty much has a lot to do with the ecology that and what I saw what I see on the island and what I see in the city itself. I just go, sometimes I'll just like go down the southwest side and sit on a bench and just watch stuff.
Sure.
That's how it works. That's pretty much the only way I can get it done. And then I take notes, or I'll write a poem right then and there. I was always impressed with like somebody like Sandra Simmons, who said she just wrote, like, even if she was like in a McDonald's, she's like waiting for a burger, she'd be like writing a poem. You just go, yeah, that's it. I get it.
I haven't had much time to write as much as I like to. So it's kind of more spontaneous, in between teaching and whatever. So it's just, a poem might come when I'm just have that 5 minutes to drink my cup of tea or coffee. I'll jot something down, and then it'll take a while for me to get back to it and finish it up.
When did you write the Ron poem, that series?
In 2021. Yeah, I did that in one sitting. I just had the memories that I had in my head. So that's why it's called Head and Ron's Head. But yeah, that happened to be a piece that I just sat down. I had enough time to sit down and write it in one sitting. And I just have been like making sticky notes, sticking them around on things like make time to write a poem, or try to take at least 10 minutes a week when I'm not reading, grading, and teaching. So I've got pieces of scraps around here right now. I did finish a book, a chapbook of poems for my mother that were not published. And I found some early poems that I wrote about my father that were not published. So I have little notebooks, folders on my desk with sticky notes on them to finish the writing.
Nice.
It will happen. It is happening slowly.
Yeah.
Getting it together.
Carla, how many plays did you do with Ron?
He produced Performing Objects Stationed in the Subworld, and in Detroit. It was performed in England first, and then Detroit, and then in San Francisco. I didn't do any other plays with Ron except the Black Mouth reading series, the cold reading series, which I think we were talking about the other day. So this is a chance to clarify something about cold readings, which is, so we did this, we had this idea to, when this was when he was living in the apartment at the Universalist Unitarian Church up on top, and had a lot of access to that building. And we were just, I was teaching at Wayne at the time, and there were some really interesting kind of experimental plays that students were doing, and he was interested in encouraging sort of more poets theater and playwriting. And so we decided that we would do this cold reading series, which is a form. It's a thing that actually exists. Like, there had been some comment about, well, why don't you just produce the plays? But in fact, it's a form where people get together and they look at something cold, or they read something cold. They may have looked at the text a little bit beforehand. And so it's like it's a sounding, like a collective sounding of the work. So it's a particular way of, like having a kind of audience for a play at a point way before it's produced to hear it collectively. And so we did a number of those events together, and that generated that was also very generative of conversation between us, and kind of working out some, especially for Ron, I think, frustrations around how difficult in Detroit it was to like do stuff, like encourage things to happen, but also to do things.
Yeah, we were all operating on a shoestring, so it was this was not this. I mean, and this was a great example of that, because there was no shoestring. It was just like this is like basement space. And I remember, Ron, when we used to read at Perry Mallett's place on Trumbull, the old Trumbull Theater, and that was always an amazing place. He was terrific in that, because it had a nice stage, and it could get the backup band behind him, and just
that was
I'm not familiar with that space. Where's that?
It was like the old Perry Mallett, the Trumbleplex now. The kids got.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Perry Mallett ran that, and we used to put on poetry readings, and Ron was all. I think Ron did one of his first plays there, as a matter of fact, that I can think of. I mean, that was like early '80s, mid '80s, early '80s.
Well, through it all, I think Ron, he did produce and write and produce over 10 plays when he was here. So that's something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he really did it. I mean,
yes,
he was great at, accomplishing this like really difficult thing to accomplish when the resources were so minimal.
yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for us to, Sonia says he found a way to make it work.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's
He was always able to find some type of a small grant or funding from somewhere, you know?
He
That
did
helped.
that.
Yes, he did.
He was really good at that. Yeah. And other people, like people wanted to help, so he catalyzed interest for sure.
Absolutely. Well, tonight has been really incredible, and considering we had some kind of little cosmic intervention at the beginning, but
I agree. It was remarkable.
we pulled it together, including Detroit police.
Well, actually, they were Ypsilanti police. And
oh my goodness!
That's where I am right now. And there was, it was really like distressing. Like they were moving up and down my driveway with like huge weapons.
Oh my!
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really did handle that calmly.
Shout out the door. Get out of here. Get off my lawn, God damn it.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to stop me and get me to identify somebody I didn't see. And, I was like, no, sorry, bye. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
All right, so we need to wrap it up.
Okay, we should. Thank you for
Thank
reminding.
you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you.
Thank you,
wonderful.
Dennis. Hi, Deb.
Okay, so anyway, there's a few things that we need to remember to do. Aurora, you're going to announce Leslie Reese.
Yes. Our next event, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, our next event for this year is Monday, August 28th, and features my good buddy and favorite poet, Leslie Reese, poet and writer and interdisciplinary arts educator. Leslie Reese is based in Chicago and Detroit, holder of an MA in interdisciplinary arts from Columbia College. Leslie has been a reading mentor for kindergartners, a poetry instructor for teens, and a literacy coach facilitating reading and writing workshops for adult learners. She is a founder of Folklore and Literacy, which uses self-expression. Did I do that?
Visual
Oh, I'm
arts,
sorry, which uses
performance.
books, visual arts, music, movement, and performance as its gateways to literacy discovery and self-expression. In addition to authoring the poetry collections Upside Down Tapestry, Mosaic History, and Urban Junkstar, Leslie has composed and performed original poetry for projects by bassist Marion Hayden and violinist Regina Carter. Currently, she is a Chicago Poetry Center poet in residence in Chicago Public Elementary Schools, a role she first practiced with Inside Out Literary Arts Project and the Broadside Press Poets in Residence program in Detroit. So we're looking forward to seeing you, Leslie.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so everybody, thank you for joining and participating this evening. Remember to view the chat for any links from our artists and co-hosts. This is your last chance. And please note that all of our HIP events run from 7 to 9 p.m. EST and can be accessed by the same link each time. This event is made possible by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation and supported by the Hannan Center and Kayrod Gallery in Detroit. Good night.
Join our Facebook page, the Ron Allen Project Public, and follow us on Instagram at the Ron Allen Project to stay up to date and keep in touch with us. You can also leave your email address in the chat and we will add you to our list. Visit our Horizons in Poetry YouTube page to review all of the events from 2022 and access playlists from Vintage Hip and Ron Allen in Los Angeles videos. We anticipate the launch of the Ron Allen Project website in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Aurora.
Time and space in the city, in the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise and death in my pen. Flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. In time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp. And death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero chic drag. As a chiseled beat of soul and sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace is ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake depth and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope, smoke, taupe, factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. A space change of funky, junky shifts. And we blow rips of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag goodbye. And we become the gun of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded youth decay. And money won't speak. And time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in canned rally time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex. And the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin. City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common mind. And penny witches of cool. And master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the devil and space is never level. as the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak, and time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.